U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton has met with the acting head of the Youth Security Service of Ukraine in Kyiv. After the meeting, Bolton said he discussed various ways Ukraine and the U.S. can strengthen collaboration across a wide range of national security activities. Our correspondent Tom Bell joins us live from a press briefing in Kyiv, where John Bolton spoke a short while ago. So hello, Tom. I'm passing on the word to you.
Thank you very much, Oles. Well, as you said, this cooperation between the US and Ukraine was just one of the many things discovered. In fact, the press conference just finished 5 minutes ago, still writing down the notes. But basically, John Bolton said that he'd met with Mr. Zelensky. The meeting was about 90 minutes long, and really they spoke about the future. They spoke about the opportunities that lie ahead with the new government. Of course, the parliament opens tomorrow. Also, really progress that can be made in terms of reforms, as well as domestic and foreign policy as well. So I'll give you now a soundbite from Mr. Bolton, who told us a bit more about what he was particularly surprised about.
I think would have a significant security impact. Number one, to the extent that corruption is reduced and the system becomes a more rule of law, economic environment, the greater the opportunity for foreign investment, particularly from the United States, the less corruption, the easier it is for American businesses to deal. And I think also just politically, the legislative success on these reform efforts would strengthen President Zelensky's hand internationally. And that might well contribute to a diplomatic solution to the Donbass and Crimea. So these are the relationship between a strong, free domestic economy and a strong politico-military presence, both for deterrence purposes and for protection.
So there we go. That was John Bolton talking about Ukrainian and US cooperation, and particularly how the US can help Ukraine fight corruption. Now, you might remember a week ago, there was a big story in the Wall Street Journal about how the US was looking to block the potential sale or part of a Ukrainian aerospace firm to the Chinese. Now, he also spoke about this as well, and here's what he had to say.
Number one, I'd rather not discuss specific companies or economic transactions. I do think it's important to look at the overall picture, and that is, as I'm sure you're all aware, the United States and China are having significant differences over trade now. It's not just about the imbalance in exports and imports between the United States and China or the balance of trade. It's about the fundamental reasons why that imbalance exists, and it rests in large part on decades of China stealing intellectual property, engaging in forced technology transfers, discriminating against foreign businesses and investors in China.
So there we go. That was John Bolton there, really warning from the US perspective that China could use its economic leverage and diplomatic leverage as well to influence other countries around the world. Now, of course, as you remember, the G7 is happening, or was finished recently. And at that particular meeting, Donald Trump was quoted as pushing for Russia to rejoin a new sort of G8 format. So I did ask Mr. Bolton what he thought of this and how exactly Ukraine and Russia can be both supported by the US administration. My name is Tom Bell. I work for UATV, Ukraine State International Broadcaster. I have a question about Donald Trump and the G7. Media reports suggest he's pushed for Russia to be re-invited into a sort of new format, G8. You've already said, whilst you've been in Ukraine, that Russia has to decide on its own, and of course it's still preliminary, nothing's been decided. But my question is, can you give specific examples about how the administration balances supporting Ukraine, perhaps with weapons, with financial support, diplomatic support, while also trying to bring in Russia, considering Crimea is still occupied, there's still regular Russian troops organising these forces in the Donbass. So how does the balance work here? And can you give some examples?
Well, my understanding is this is a moot point because President Putin said within the past day or so that he didn't want to go back into the G7 unless every country wanted him to. And it reminded me of a Marxist joke by Karl Marx, Freudian slip, Groucho Marx, the real Marx, who once said he never wanted to be a member of a club that would have him as a member.
So there we go, John Bolton just slightly avoiding the question there. Now, of course, Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump are expected to meet in Poland as the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of World War II in Poland approaches on September the 1st. That still hasn't been confirmed, but once we hear any more information on that or any other matters related to Ukraine-US relations, we'll bring it to you first. Oles, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. And I have to say that was a brilliant question addressed to Mr. Bolton. Thank you. That was our correspondent Tom Bell reporting live from the John Bolton's press conference. The U.S. National Security Advisor is currently visiting the Ukrainian capital.